Hello and welcome to this edition of SFG Top Performance podcast. This morning we'll talk about grain and feed and little things. We haven't discussed anything since prior to harvest. Here we are, middle of January, and the markets have pretty much nosedived. You could say corn's in the low fours locally, beans 11.5, 12. New crop pretty similar, low fours, low 11s on the beans. So, what's going on here? Well, the latest thing was the USDA report that came out last week, and they came in with a record yield at 177.3 on the corn, and that surprised just about everybody. The average trade guess was 174.9. So the USDA jumped at 2.4 bushel. Now, doing that, they also dropped off 600,000 acres on the harvested side. They were taking out acres that probably went to silage or were abandoned, and they were all low-yielding acres. So you can bump your yield by doing that. But the trade was fixated on that yield number. And on down the page, on the demand side, the USDA raised just about every category except exports. And so at the bottom, the page, we weren't that much higher on the carryout, 31 million bushel, not a big deal. However, on the world stocks report, it showed almost 400 million bushels more corn than they expected. A lot of that came out of China. They actually had some good production over there this year. And that probably explains why they haven't been buying much of any corn from us or South America in the near past. They're still going to need some corn, but hopefully it's before the safrinha corn comes available down in South America. On the bean side, the average trade guess on yield was 49.9, and the USDA said that in September. That was their projection. In January, they raised that 0.7 of a bushel up to 50.6. They didn't do a lot on the demand side. They pretty much left things alone. So the carryout increased 35 million bushel to 280 million bushels. And that takes the pressure off the market. We were hoping for a sub 200 bushel carryout. That makes it a little tighter, makes prices quite a bit better. But we didn't get that. So right now everybody's being able to buy ample supplies without getting too carried away. Now, whether we agree or disagree with these numbers, it's what the trade will use for now, and probably until we get to the March intentions report, which is in late March. And maybe there'll be some fireworks in there. Most years we have an acre war. Right now at this minute, there doesn't seem to be one. I think both corn and beans feel they're in a place that they'll get the acres they want. We look at Brazil. They're just now starting their bean harvest. Not enough results to really say good or bad. The so-called experts keep lowering their production down there almost weekly, definitely monthly, due to a lot of hot and dry weather. But Brazil is a huge, huge country. A lot of weather differences from north to south, east to west. So, their averages will come in probably more than what the experts maybe think. On the flip side, Argentina is projected to have almost a record yield, corn and beans both. And last year they were suffering big time. So today, the thought is that they will raise enough extra beans to offset Brazil's loss. In this country, there's a huge amount of unpriced grain. Farmers in general have been slow marketers. A lot of it went in the bins last fall. It's still in the bins. Basis levels locally are somewhat neutral right now. They're not great, they're not bad. What we got to watch for, though, is once grain starts moving, let's say the board does jump up 25, 50 cents on corn, the basis levels could widen at the same point. once more grain becomes available. So it's going to be a game to play to make sure you get those basis levels locked in prior to a board increase. Right now, the definition of a rally in corn could be 25 cents instead of 50 or 75. The odds are getting a huge increase are becoming less. Spring weather will be the next player. If we stay on a dry pattern, there could be, some expectation of a crop loss there, but we're a ways from that point. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Mike, and he's going to talk about some feed opportunities.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Guys, it's time. We're like 30 to 60 days before calving season, and we all know how cold it is outside. I don't have to tell you that. But the reason I'm reminding you, 30, 60 days before calving. So let's make sure we got enough protein and energy in that diet. I don't care how you do it. You got feedstuffs, you got silage and hay, but there's gluten pellets, there's tubs and other options we can talk to you about. But energy and protein are important. So mama's in the right shape and we got a good healthy calf being born. The other thing is that be sure you get the calving mineral with biomass, because everybody I talk to says, well, I've never had scours, and then they call me and say, oh, I got it. So why not prevent it? Get the calving mineral with biomass. Start it at least 3 weeks before calving through calving. The biomass binds up the pathogens. Even if you got a few calves on the ground, they'll dry up. It's never failed a producer yet. The other thing it does improves the milk quality. So give me a call. Let's get the calving mineral in there. Calves are worth a fortune, as you know. So tubs, we've been moving a lot of tubs. There's options for you guys. We got the Crystalix that you're acquainted with, which is the steel tub. And I laid in some Kent plastic tubs. We had guys that wanted plastic. They're 250 pounders. And so there's no deposit charge, and you can put your flowers in them, keep them, whatever you want to do with them, or burn them. One thing, Kent has a new high fat tub, 8% fat and protein together. And what that's for is when you really need energy before calving. That's the tub to use, or at breeding time. And it's a unique process. It's a soy bypass type fat, so it's utilized in the rumen by the cow. So they worked good last year for guys at breeding. They said their conception rate went up when they fed it during breeding. So just so you're aware of that. So you want plastic tubs, we got them. Feeder calves are still bringing good money. I just heard the market this morning driving, and 675-pound steers brought $260 a pound. So you can take that to the bank. So the other thing I want to remind you about is feedlot, growing calves or feeding cattle out. We got the options. We got the nutritionists. We can do the diets. We can do the forage analysis. So we can supply you with meal balancers, pellet balancers, anywhere from 1/3 to 3/4 of a pound a head a day, bag or bulk. And we are competitive. We picked up some guys that were working with consultants last week, and they liked our nutritionist, they liked his diets, and we had a better price than the independent consultant was even giving them. So we can be there, just call me. So the last thing I want to mention is everybody knows their operating money costs more than it did last year. And so whether it's 1% more or 4% more, guys, Hubbard has feeder finances, 0% interest. And even if you got the money sitting somewhere that's getting you some interest, let it sit there. Go on feeder finance. It's 0% interest. You can pay, it's good for a year. You can pay on it any time, but it's due in a year. You guys at spring and fall calf, we can make a separate contract for the spring and fall group, because it's different times marketing. So why not pay 0 interest? You're buying the feed anyway. and leave your money on the money market or whatever, or quit paying the bank 3% more. And the bankers don't care. We're writing more feeder finance contracts. They're borrowing enough operating money on the crop side that they don't care what you do. So call me on the feeder finance. So I know you've been through 2 weeks of you know what, and hopefully it's going to get better. So just remember, calving season's coming up, and don't shortchange mama. So thanks for your business, and you got my number, and call me anytime. Phone's always on. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. I'd like to remind you to check our website, sfgiowa.com. We have weekly blogs, feed, agronomy, and grain. We also post the daily markets there late in the afternoon. With that, this wraps up this edition. We look forward to seeing you again.